Hey, Nick. How are you?
I'm really good, Armand. How have you been?
Good, good. Thank you. You know, I really like our new decoding algorithm.
Yeah, it will definitely change technology forever.
Yeah, it's super awesome. We should do something with it.
Like what? Get a patent?
Patent is good, but we should also publish it. And no one knows what will happen.
Well, it's definitely good enough to publish if it's going to change technology forever. Maybe it might win a Best Paper award.
Yeah, but I think we can do something more with it.
Like what?
Maybe a company.
Oh, that's awesome. We'd be rich, definitely. I have no idea how to start a company, though.
Me neither, but, well, we can't find someone to ask.
Someone, an engineer who had a really good company and a really good algorithm.
Yeah, the algorithm, company, an engineer. Who?
Who?
Andrew Viterbi is widely known as the inventor of the Viterbi algorithm, originally proposed in 1967 for interference suppression and efficient decoding of a digital transmission sequence, an algorithm used by all 4 international standards for digital cellular telephony. The algorithm was published during the decade when Dr. Viterbi served as a professor of the UCLA School of Engineering and Applied Science. During that same period, in 1968, he also co-founded Linkabit Corporation, where he later served as president in the early 1980s. Following the merger of Linkabit and MACOM, he co-founded Qualcomm, where he remained chief technical officer until 1996 and vice chairman of the company until 2000. That same year, Dr. Viterbi established the equity investment firm, the Viterbi Group, LLC, which he continues to run as president. He is also the presidential chair professor of electrical engineering in the University of Southern California, that's USC, Viterbi School of Engineering, named in recognition of a 2004 gift from Dr. and Mrs. Erna Viterbi. It was a homecoming of sorts. Dr. Viterbi earned his Ph.D. from USC in 1963 after receiving his master's and undergraduate degrees from MIT. He started his career at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory prior to joining the UCLA faculty. Today, Dr. Viterbi is a fellow of the IEEE, a Marconi Fellow, and a member of the National Academy of Engineering, National Academy of Sciences, and American Academy of Arts and Sciences. He served as an advisor to Provigent, later acquired by Broadcom, and Flarion Technologies, acquired by Qualcomm. In 1984, Dr. Viterbi was awarded the IEEE Alexander Graham Bell Medal, in 1991 the Shannon Prize and Lecture, and in 2005 the Benjamin Franklin Medal in Electrical Engineering. Other major awards followed, including the National Medal of Science in 2007 and the IEEE Medal of Honor in 2010.
Well, with all that, I can't even turn on a microphone. And I have to accept the title of venture capitalist because I guess I've been doing that, although I relish it with far less enthusiasm than any of my previous titles, professor, entrepreneur, chief technical officer, and whatever. Why is that? Because the VC role is to make money for his or her clients, known as, this isn't live? Better. VC role is primarily to make money for his or her clients, known as limited partners. They're limited because they have no word, no say in the matter. And their role is a very important one, but no matter how novel, exciting, or beneficial the technology, the bottom line is still what counts. Of course, for me, it's been a learning experience and an interesting hobby. And my limited partners were always satisfied with my results, probably because they all share my name. But the entrepreneurs, such as those that are waiting out there in the wings, have loftier goals. While the money is the fuel to drive their endeavors, their excitement comes through the creation of new products, new systems, and new services as applications of the science and technology for which they have a passion. Let's hear the pitches and experiences. Nambi. Nambi, come on in.
After doing his undergraduate degree in India, Nambi Seshadri earned his master's and PhD from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. Seshadri then served more than 13 years with AT&T, first as a member of the technical staff in the Signal Processing Research Department of AT&T Bell Labs, and later as head of communications research at AT&T Shannon's lab. At AT&T, Seshadri co-invented a space-time trellis code with Taroch and Robert Kolebank, and their paper won the IEEE Information Theory Society Best Paper Award in 1999. Also, in 1999, Seshadri left AT&T for Broadcom, where he was the first employee dedicated to developing the company's wireless strategy. In 2002, the IEEE Communications Society selected a paper by Seshadri and co-authors on a space-time coding-based modem as one of the 50 most influential works published by the Society in its first 50 years. In 2012, Nambi Seshadri was elected to the National Academy of Engineering. He was cited for his contributions to wireless communications theory and the development of mass-market wireless technology. He is also a fellow of IEEE. And last year, Seshadri became CTO of Broadcom's broadband and connectivity units. Now let's go back in time. The year is 1999, and Nambi has an idea.
Hello, Dr. Viterbi.
Please have a seat.
Thank you, Dr. Viterbi, for agreeing to meet with me. I have come here seeking your advice on a couple of interesting career choices. As you may know, I have been with AT&T Bell Labs and AT&T Research for many years now, and it has been just a fabulous ride, working on all kinds of wonderful problems, including invention of space-time codes, helping to create the edge data standards. But there is something that has been nagging me for some time now. The issue that it's become obvious perhaps a little bit late is that as AT&T, we are in the business of actually providing services. We typically buy products from other companies, and I'm itching to actually do some products. And turns out I have a couple of interesting options, and that's what I would like to discuss with you about. I've been spending some time, it's clear, looking into the next decade, broadband wireless is going to be huge. And I have an opportunity to co-found a very interesting startup in the broadband wireless space, taking advantage of all the MIMO and space-time technologies with Professor Paul Raj. That has been very intriguing, and I've been discussing all those ideas with him and getting a lot of encouragement as well from friends and colleagues and VCs and so on. However, as I was doing this, there was another very interesting option that came across, which was brought from Broadcom. Broadcom, as you know, just went public, and they believe that wireless is very important to them in the future as well. And one of the things that they have offered me is a very intriguing possibility of being the first person to come in and join and help to develop the complete wireless strategy and execution path, and help to build a very successful business. I'm thinking about both of those, and would really like your advice on what kinds of questions I should be thinking and asking in order to ensure I go on the right path. So really would like your help here on this.
That's the question. Okay, the answer I would give you is that it's all about people. And just as I would advise my fellow VCs to do their due diligence on the ability, not only the story, but also the background and the potential ability of the entrepreneurs. I'd turn it around in your case and ask you, are you comfortable with the people you'd be working with? If it's already an existing startup, have you done your due diligence?
Thank you. I've spent some time looking at this, and of course, we all know Dr. Paul Raj, and he and I had spent a lot of tremendous respect for him, and he's just beginning to. We are discussing how to put forth the team, and I think there is a good team that is getting formed, which is nice. At Broadcom, of course, they have had a successful pedigree, and some of our wonderful colleagues, Gottfried, has just joined Broadcom, which is great. And they have built a very, very strong analog, primarily professors and students out of UCLA, and I think the team, both teams look extremely strong, and the CTO, of course, for the company is Henry Samueli, a former colleague of yours from UCLA, who has a very strong, silicon background. And of course, they have a very interesting CEO who seems to have been very good in creating this company and enabling the company to go public and be successful.
Very good. I wish you luck on your decision.
Thank you.
Next. Come on in.
Rajiv Laroia earned his undergraduate degree from IIT Delhi, his master's in 1999, and his PhD in 1992 in electrical engineering from the University of Maryland in College Park. After graduating, he joined the prestigious Mathematical Sciences Research Center in Bell Labs, where he developed new constellation shaping methods that doubled the speed of telephone data transmissions. 5 years later, Rajiv became the director of Bell Labs' Digital Communications Research Department. Every telephone sold since 1998 has included his telephone modem design. In 2000, Rajiv led his research spin-off group into a startup called Flareon Technologies, where he remained CTO for the next 6 years. Rajiv co-invented an internet protocol-based sped spectrum technique known as OFDM for cellular wireless data transmission systems. If successful, OFDM would dramatically improve wireless communications and pave the way for truly smartphones, what some later called 4G, or fourth generation technology. And today in 2000, Rajiv has an idea.
Welcome. Have a seat and tell us your story.
Going out of the skit for a moment, I'd like to tell you that this actually is a dramatization of a real conversation that happened between me and Dr. Viterbi in the year 2000. So Andy, at Bell Labs, my group developed a technology to do what I would call internet right, wireless internet correctly. As you know, the 3G standards were basically developed for voice, and now that the internet has really taken off, all of the standards have been repurposed to claim that they're wireless internet, whereas they're really not designed with the internet protocols in mind. In fact, if you look at the 3G standard today, it doesn't even mention the word internet even once. So, and the world today is divided into two camps. There are people that understand wireless, wide area network wireless, and those people mainly have designed those systems for voice. And then there is a different set of companies that understand data and promoting data, but they don't really understand wide area network wireless. Their answer to everything is Wi-Fi, and they don't understand that that doesn't scale. So we decided at Bell Labs to take a clean sheet approach to designing a wireless system that does internet, basically wireless internet from the get-go, without being burdened by any legacy compatibility issues. So I'm here today to seek your support for this idea.
Okay, have you considered the hurdles? First of all, carriers don't like proprietary technology. So have you looked into standardization?
We have. We believe that there are forums in which we can standardize the technology. They may not be the conventional cellular standardization forums, but they are data standardization forums such as IEEE, and we're definitely going to try to standardize our technology in the IEEE standards.
And you realize you'll have to set up another Bell Labs to do all this, because you'll have to make chips, you'll have to make handsets, base stations, and internet protocols, and tie them in, and you're a fresh face in a tough environment, and they will throw all sorts of things at you. I've been there. I wish you luck.
Thank you. Yeah, I have thought about those things. It is a daunting task. We have to do a lot of things because nobody will help us. It is our proprietary technology, so we have to build everything. But we have a very, very strong team. You'll be happy to know that Tom Richardson from Bell Labs, who's the expert in coding theory, has joined the team, and he's a part of the team. Then we have a very good elite group of technologists that is on the advisory board. Sergio from Princeton, Rob Calderbank, Shlomo Shammai, and Jacob Ziv, you know, they're all on the advisory board of the company. And with their help and the ability to attract the right talent with the key people, we believe that we can do this. We know it's been done before. We're inspired by what you guys accomplished, and we want to repeat that.
I wish you the best of luck, and I will be watching what you're doing.
Thank you.
Come in.
Meir received his PhD in both electrical engineering and ocean engineering in 1987 from MIT after doing his master's at Tel Aviv University. He returned to his alma mater, Tel Aviv University, in 1990 and today holds the information theory chair at the university. In early 90s, he worked with Intel on MMX architecture and designed efficient multimedia algorithms for it. And then in 1998, he co-founded and became CTO of Peach Networks, a provider for server-based interactive TV systems via cable networking. And 2 years later, the company was acquired by Microsoft. In 2001, Feder co-founded and became chief scientist at the startup Bandwidth to provide massive content delivery systems using rateless codes. During the same period, in 2001, Feder was on the founding team of Final Incorporation, a startup in high-frequency trading and forecasting in financial markets. Soon after, he had another idea for a company, and he approached venture capitalists. Now let's go back in time. The year is 2003, and Meir has an idea.
Well, thank you for seeing me. So indeed, we have an idea. We are a team, 3 people. One of them is my former student, Tzvika Reznik. And when he finished his PhD, I asked him what he's planning to do. He says that his expertise is doing chips for communication. My immediate reaction was that now it's time for wireless. There is MIMO. There are ways to do much faster wireless, and we thought to concentrate at the home in the indoor environment. But the question was really, is there a real good application that requires the highest data rate that will be provided by MIMO? Sure, you can say that there is always the need for more bandwidth, but we said, let's do this startup in the right way. Let's start from the application. Let's start from the marketing. It turns out that we met a guy who was a VP at Micronas. It's a company that is working with TVs and doing display processors for TVs. Remember, this is the year 2003, and Micronas doesn't exist anymore. So that guy said, you know, we are going to have this era of flat panel TVs. At that time, there were not flat panel TV everywhere. And the assumption is that indeed in 5 years or so, there will be only flat panel TVs. And there is a new standard that is emerging for connecting the real-time video to the TV, HDMI. HDMI was a development of DVI, which was supposed to connect the computer monitors to the computers. And now with HDMI on a cable, there is an immediate relevant question, why not to have wireless HDMI? So when that guy from Micronas told us, can you really do wireless HDMI? If you can, he said a sentence, all my customers want it, but everybody tells me it's impossible. And as you know, Israelis, when you hear the word impossibles, we should make the impossible possible. And the question is, why is it impossible? They were talking about 1.5 gigabits per second, and the amount of bandwidth, we thought at the Wi-Fi band, the 5 gigahertz band, the amount of bandwidth that was available was 20 megahertz. So how you can really do 1.5 gigabits per second over 20 megahertz bandwidth? Well, you can do MIMO, but even if we do 4 by something, we will get an equivalent of 80 megahertz, 1.5 gigabits per second. But then you have to remember that it's a video. It's not a general data. So here is the idea. It should be real time. So let's use joint source channel coding. So our company, the combination of joint source channel coding together with MIMO, we will do real-time video transfer that will really make a wireless HDMI. We will be a chip company. Our chip will be in any TV, every TV in the world. And of course, then it will be on the sources side, on the receivers, the computers. These were the sources at that time. And this is what our company is going to be, a chip company for doing wireless HDMI.
Great. Have you considered standardizing? Is there a committee to do that?
Okay, that's an interesting question. We were thinking about that. The problem is that the standardization committees of IEEE and Wi-Fi do not deal with the higher layer of video that was at that time. So we will build our own standardization group. This will be the same as HDMI. HDMI was not a standard. It was the founder of HDMI, Silicon Image, built a group of companies that made an ad hoc standard, and that standard really catch on. So we will do the same thing. We are actually even thought about the name. Our name will be WHDI, Wireless High Definition Interface, and we will ask the consumer electronic companies. We talked with Sony, we talked with Samsung. We hope they will join our standardization effort, and if we were successful, this will be a de facto standard.
Well, it's a very impressive approach. I would simply advise you to stay flexible because you're dealing with huge consumer markets and there's going to be tremendous competition.
I can. Well, I hope. I mean, I was involved previously in other companies. I hope that this company will be different in the sense that once we solve the technical problem, marketing will be easy because everybody needs wireless connection to the TV. This is what I'm thinking.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Come in.
Andrea Goldsmith got her undergraduate, master's, and PhD degrees all from UC Berkeley in electrical engineering, finally graduating in 1994. Before graduating, she worked at Maxim Technology on early MIMO systems. After graduation, she joined Caltech as an assistant professor. Between 1998 and 2002, concurrent with her faculty appointments, she held the position of chief scientist at MemoryLink. In 1999, she moved from Caltech to Stanford, where she now directs the Wireless System Laboratory and is the Stephen Harris Chair. While still at Stanford, Andrea Goldsmith co-founded and served as the CTO for two wireless companies, Quantenna Communications in 2005 and Accelera in 2010. Accelera focused on software-defined wireless networking technology for cloud-based management Wi-Fi access points. And now we're back in 2005, and Andrea has an idea.
Welcome, Andrea.
Thanks,
Please have
Andy.
a seat and tell us your ideas.
Thanks, Andy. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. So I've decided I don't have enough to do with 2 young children and my faculty job and having just become head PI of the IT Monet program. And so I'm thinking about starting a company. And the main motivation is that before I went back to graduate school, I worked at a small startup in defense communication, and we were building early MIMO systems and satellite communications. And it was really building those systems that made me fall in love with communications and wireless. And that's why I went back for my PhD. And a lot of my research during my PhD and afterwards over the last 10 years was in part inspired by the insights and the fun I had building those systems. So it's been 10 years, 15 years since I've built anything. And I've been working in MIMO, and there's a lot of fantastic technology that we've developed. We've written papers. We've won Best Paper Awards. I think it's time to go out and build an advanced MIMO chip. And right now, the Wi-Fi standard has just evolved to include MIMO technology. It's a draft standard. So I'm thinking that I should start a company to build Wi-Fi chips. And I actually was introduced by a potential co-founder, by John Chiaffi, who just came out of doing a successful IPO with a wireline company. And so we're talking about doing a company together. So I'd love to get your advice and maybe your money.
You're a Stanford professor.
That's right.
I can think of 4. You mentioned one, but I can think of 4. I won't name them. Some of them are here, who have been very successful at startups, and they made it through the IPO or the acquisition or whatever, and went back to Stanford. Is that your intention? And why Stanford? Because I can give you examples of UCLA, UCSB, many other Southern California, I can't go to the East, that were successful, but stayed. So tell me.
Right. So my president, John Hennessy, likes to say that everybody thinks that all Stanford professors start companies and that's required to get tenure. But actually, it's not required to get tenure. It's required to buy a house. So
Good answer.
I'd like a better house. So whether it's hard for me to imagine leaving academia. Part of my motivation to do this company is that I think, just like in my first job, that I'm going to learn a lot that I can bring back to my research and teaching. And so right now, I'm not sure. I don't think that I would not go back to the academic world, but I also know that it's very difficult to be not 200% as a founder of a company engaged in that company. And if people know that you have a backup job, which is your academic job, and that you can always go back when things get tough, it changes the way you're perceived by your investors, by your co-founders, and by your employees. So I will wait to see what happens before having to make that decision.
And you won't let on.
No. Well, okay. It's hard not to, because everybody knows.
Very good. I'm sure it'll be great. I wish you luck.
Thank you very much.
We're going to have a break now. We're going to have a break now so that time can go on, and they can come back as successful entrepreneurs.
Now we come to today. The year is 2015, and we are at ITA.
When Nambi Seshadri joined Broadcom in 1999, the company was less than 8 years old. It had not yet entered the fast-growing market for wireless communication devices. Against that backdrop, Seshadri was Broadcom's first employee dedicated to developing the company's wireless strategy, initially with wireless connectivity products and subsequently entering the cellular baseband market. He helped drive Broadcom's entry into 2G and 3G cellular, mobile multimedia, low-power Wi-Fi for handsets, combo connectivity chips that integrate multiple wireless connectivity technologies, GPS, and more. The core of the newfound strength came first in an acquisition that enabled radio frequency using standard CMOS technology. This formed the basis for Broadcom's entry into Bluetooth and Wi-Fi markets. In addition, key acquisitions in 2005 and 2007 enabled Broadcom to enter mobile Wi-Fi and GPS markets. Combo products based on integrating various forms of wireless connectivity enabled Broadcom to become a leader in wireless connectivity. In cellular basebands, the company made acquisitions in GSM that enabled them to build the first Class 10 Edge product for nationwide AT&T rollout, and later in 3G space that enabled them to enter the 3G multi-mode cellular baseband chipset market. This was later complemented by a mobile multimedia acquisition that enabled the company to build processors for the first video iPod, as well as the first HD video camera and first 12-megapixel camera phones from Nokia. However, Broadcom could never build a substantial market share as well as profitable business in cellular, leading to exit from cellular basebands in mid-2014. Broadcom remains a leader in wireless connectivity. Total revenues from the time that Seshadri joined have jumped from about $500 million to $8.5 billion, its workforce from 500 to over 11,000 employees. Additionally, Broadcom went from having only 5 U.S. patents issued as of 1999 to more than 9,000 today, and that number doubles if you add in foreign patents and applications, which now top 20,000 worldwide.
Come on in. Thank you. You've aged, but you're also better dressed.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Transformation from a research to corporate life. A little anecdote here was I had not seen Andrea since '94, and the first time I met her again was in 2007 at ICC Korea, and I was dressed in a suit, and I said, "Hi, Andrea," and she was like, "Who's this guy?" So it's been an interesting transformation. And by the way, the gray hair all came about over a 6-month period from 2010 to 2011. I was as young as I was in '99 up to 2010. Yeah.
Okay, well, very good. It sounds from the movie that you've had some success. Tell us how the people have, you've gone from one person to several hundred or thousand in your area. How was the recruiting, and did you do it all by internal growth, or did you go out and acquire companies?
So it has been a combination. The nucleus of the early wireless adventure came from acquisitions. I did one of the very first things I learned was that especially during the '99 to 2001 timeframe, during the internet bubble, Broadcom's value was extremely high, and we were able to essentially identify extremely good teams that we could bring on board, which may not be possible today. So that was actually, and I learned that, of course, after going in there, and then my initial thought process was I was going to do some interesting research with a bunch of folks there, create some products and so on. But then very soon I learned that it's that we need to move very rapidly, and in order to move rapidly, it was good to go and acquire companies, and we were able to do that. So, and then we essentially used that as the nucleus and started hiring people surrounding them. So I would say about 1/4 to 1/3 were through acquisitions, and 2/3 to 3/4 came through organic hiring.
Well, often the acquisition is a tough entity to integrate. Can you tell us something about the experience there?
The experience was really wonderful for almost all the companies from a technology execution point of view. Almost every company that we acquired executed on the technology. If at all there was a failure, I would call it, in any space, it was a marketing or a business failure rather than a technology acquisition. And in the case of, for example, the first company we acquired in RF CMOS, the founders, who are both, by the way, UCLA PhDs, are still at the company running the RF group. And the same thing in wireless LAN and GPS and so many other spaces. People have stayed through all these years. At least I would say half of the key technology founders through these acquisitions have stayed.
And that's an accolade for the acquiring company, which often, unfortunately, there are bad examples where the integration is not made because they didn't really understand what they were buying. And so people deflected. So congratulations.
Thank you so
made
much.
the right decision.
Thank you.
While he was still running the Digital Communications Research Group at Lucent Technologies Bell Labs, Rajiv Laroia co-invented a spread spectrum technique for a wireless data system called Flash OFDM. It was a packet-switched cellular system breaking up messages into packets before they're sent. The technology let companies extend IP-based internet functions to mobile devices, efficiently transmitting data faster with less support required. Plus, it made more efficient use of radio spectrum than the Intel-backed WiMAX competitor. But it was the year 2000 and Lucent was in retrenchment mode. According to Dr. Laroia, Lucent had other priorities that prevented them from committing the resources to realize his vision. Working with a team from New Venture Partners, they developed a plan to create an exciting alternative path for commercialization of disruptive ideas by spinning the Flash OFDM technology out of Lucent. Dr. Laroia became the founder and chief technology officer of a standalone New Jersey-based startup called Flarion Technologies. But the biggest validation came later. First, all told, Flarion was able to raise more than $150 million to commercialize its technology. Then, an even bigger number. 6 years after being spun out from Lucent, Flarion agreed to be acquired by Qualcomm for $805 million. The same year, OFDMA transmission technology became the basis of Qualcomm's 4G solution, LTE. OFDMA would later be cited by the IEEE Communications Society when it awarded Dr. Laroia the IEEE Industrial Innovation Award in 2013.
Come on in, Rajiv, and tell us about your success.
Good to see you. I'm resetting the clock. The year is now 2005, and I am here to seek advice from Andy.
Well, you have an offer from Qualcomm. Have you considered other alternatives? Have you shopped it around? And why did you need to get acquired?
So let me tell you where we are right now and why Qualcomm's made the offer, in my opinion. So, as you know, we did a very successful trial with Nextel, and they were about to deploy us nationwide when they got acquired by Sprint themselves, and now their plans have changed. But as you know, fortunately, at the right time, we diversified into Europe as well, and we got a lot of traction with T-Mobile and Vodafone, and did trials with them. T-Mobile has been deploying us in Eastern Europe. And so in the meantime, T-Mobile and Vodafone have pushed our technology into LTE standards. So we've had interest from multiple companies. We've had dialogues with Nokia, Intel, and Qualcomm. And Qualcomm has made an offer to the company. The other companies we haven't had that extensive a dialogue with. My opinion, personally, is that Qualcomm understands the value of the intellectual property we have created, where other companies don't have the expertise to make the call on the value that we have created. And therefore, it is Qualcomm that has made the offer. And I know that you've always told us that Qualcomm is a great company. So I wanted your advice as to what we should do in face of this offer.
No question. Qualcomm actually broke in with CDMA, and by the third generation, 3G, had pretty well conquered the world, which was not an easy task considering the GSM was so strong in Europe. Did they recognize the value of having a toe, if you will, in the 4G arena, which they had not previously projected on?
I think they have participated. There was a standards bodies, right? They wanted to push their technology into 4G standards, but because we had done trials with the European operators and because WCDMA standard was really struggling, I think the European operators managed to push a different technology based on what we were doing.
And they were actually in the WiMAX standard,
they were
or both?
Somewhat in the WiMAX standard, but they were really pushing for the 4G LTE standard to be CDMA based.
So then the question is, today, as many of you may know, 4G LTE it has been, with the exception of one large country in the Far East, has been a phenomenal success for Qualcomm. Do you think that was luck, or did they actually have the vision?
Well, success is part luck and part vision. So
Good.
I think
Very
it's a
good
little
answer.
bit of both.
Very good answer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
When he co-founded Amimon in 2004, Tel Aviv University professor Meir conceived of the company as a fabless semiconductor startup developing a unique wireless version of HDMI to deliver high-definition video streams using Amimon's proprietary and computationally efficient joint source channel coding. 5 years later, Amimon was considered the inventor of the video modem and founder of the WHDI standard. Thanks to a strong intellectual property portfolio, the company was pulling in $10 million a year in revenues as of 2010 as it continued its focus on the original strategy targeting the consumer market. Institutions and private investors put $63 million into Amimon through 2011, but the company's revenues started falling as a standard based on Wi-Fi, so-called Wi-Fi display, emerged. Wi-Fi display's performance was far worse than WHDI's, but it didn't require additional hardware, so the consumer world was moving toward that solution. After a great deal of soul-searching, refinancing by existing investors, and a management shuffle, Amimon changed its business model to concentrate on selling modules for professional markets, notably film and TV broadcasters. These markets are able to pay a premium for Amimon's zero-latency, high-quality wireless video solutions. The result, the company began growing again. Revenues nearly tripled to approximately $20 million in 2014. The rebound also reflects a major new growth market for Amimon, multi-rotor unmanned aerial vehicles with cameras, mostly for aerial videography, requiring real-time video for real-time control from the ground. Amimon's main solution for the high-end UAV market offers high-quality, uncompressed HD video from a UAV 1,000 feet in the air with a latency of less than 1 millisecond.
Congratulations. Now tell us, I mentioned flexibility. Did that play a role in your ultimate success?
Well, there were. This was a roller coaster. There were many surprises, and you really have to keep being flexible. In our previous meeting, I said I thought that our main challenge is technical, really. If we can do real-time, I mean, no delay, wireless video transmission, then marketing will be easy. Everybody wants it. But life are more complicated than that. We did have our technical challenges. I mean, it was not an easy task. But technical was under our control. We could work a little harder. We had some crisis in late 2006 where things did not work so well, but we were able to overcome that. So technically, we were able to establish the wireless link from the technical point of view. We also had some success. You mentioned the standardization committee. So we built this standardization group, WHDI, and we had Sony, Samsung, Hitachi, LG, and other companies joining that. And we also had some design wins with Sony and LG. So there was a TV by Sony, 2008, that was only wireless. You didn't have to connect any video string to that, but it cost $5,000, and it didn't catch in the market. We also had another chance, another round with LG, and again, the consumer, the cost, and it was not really caught by the consumer because the other chip companies, I mean, we were talking with Qualcomm, we were talking with Broadcom, we were talking with Intel, with others, they were a little reluctant to take this non- or proprietary standard. That's what we had. And so things become tough, and sales did not grow. And the other thing we didn't imagine is that Wi-Fi become much better, and not only become much better, the people at the Wi-Fi Alliance understood that for real-time video, they have to change also the protocols. There was the Wi-Fi Direct, and on top of it, Wi-Fi display. So they thought Wi-Fi can support this application. Although the performance was not as good as ours, we had less than 1 millisecond delay. The Wi-Fi solutions had hundreds of milliseconds delays. The quality was not as good, but it did not require to add another chip to the TV or to the mobile devices. And on top of it, we, Amimon, could not handle developing low-power chip that could enter those new markets of mobile. So this is where we had to be very flexible. There we had to change our business plan, or the company would die. And we decided to go to the professional market, where the quality is appreciated, where you can sell at higher prices, and where this zero delay, zero latency technology would have a value. So we have a broadcasters market, professional cameras, and suddenly a new market has evolved. The drones, we have seen today drones flying around. Each drone is a camera, and those cameras should be connected. Sometimes you want it in real time to the ground. And we found new market. The company is now going after those professional markets. The company is profitable after many years of losing money. The company, since 2014, is profitable. And we hope that the market will turn out to be a great market, and that Amimon will be successful also financially, not just technically.
Good story. In 2004, have you ever heard of a drone with a camera?
Of course not. And we hardly heard about flat panel TVs. But yeah, surprises are, this is part of being in a startup.
And you prove that flexibility is what you need to stay alive and to prosper.
Exactly.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Stanford professor Andrea Goldsmith co-founded her first startup in November 2005, initially as MySource Communications, to build low-power Wi-Fi chipsets for smartphones. Goldsmith took a leave of absence from Stanford to develop the company and its technology in the role of Chief Technology Officer. The original strategy was to target the consumer smartphone market, but discussions with Apple and Motorola convinced the company to do a pivot to target the carrier and consumer market with high-speed, high-performance Wi-Fi based on the draft standard 802.11n. By the end of 2007, the company was close to finishing its first chip design, had changed its name to Quantenna Communications, and closed on another $12 million round of funding. By summer 2008, Quantenna's first 4x4 multiple input, multiple output 802.11n chip taped out, and it worked. This year, Quantenna expects to top $100 million in revenues with just over 200 employees at locations in California, China, Taiwan, and Australia. Institutions and private investors are betting on future profits. They have pumped a total of $178 million into the company, most recently in December. The company already claims credit for the fastest Wi-Fi in the world, and at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas this January, Quantenna demonstrated the world's first 10G Wi-Fi platform based on an 8x8 architecture. That's 8 input and 8 output antennas on a single chip. The company said it is on track for shipping the 10G chip later in 2015.
Okay, so it was a lot of fun. I think that in many ways, taking the research that we do and turning it into technology was far more rewarding than I ever imagined. It was also far harder. I think I can definitely point to the lowest points of my career were moments in my startup. I can pinpoint the day and the hour when things were going really bad. So there's a lot of ups and downs. The company almost ran out of money multiple times. We were, a week away from shutting down. The challenges, I think, were not so much technical. We had good technology. The challenges of people, we had a lot of turmoil, a lot of people left, a lot of the founders and founding team left, investor challenges, and I think sticking with it, having a vision and having a dream and sticking around even when times got tough was really important. And going back to what you asked me in our first meeting, there were many times I thought I should just go back to Stanford because academics have great jobs and you appreciate that so much more when you do a startup. But I'm glad I stuck with it because I think that the founding team in a startup is the soul of the company and you need to stick around to see it through the tough times.
And you got through the chip tape out and it worked. And it's a great product, and so you could go back, right?
That's true. Although I think startups are a little bit like children, that they go through different phases, and every phase has its own challenges, and so there isn't really an optimal time to go back. I went back in 2009, but there were many phases of the company, and they've tried to re-engage me more fully over multiple phases. I think there's always challenges and always things that you, especially as a founder and the person with the original vision, can contribute that nobody else can.
Very good. Congratulations. So far, I've asked all the questions and made a few comments. Now it's up to you all.
So before we go to the Q&A session, there's a single announcement. So we had a sixth guest, Balaji Prabhakar, that was supposed to come, but due to some health issues, he couldn't join us. There's a thing in our culture that says the wish to do something counts as equally as doing it. So we're going to honor that 50% and also run these slides and the video. Okay. Balaji Prabhakar earned his PhD from UCLA in electrical engineering in 1994. Upon graduation, he joined the Basic Research Institute of HP Labs, located in Bristol in the United Kingdom. 2 years later, he moved to the Electrical Engineer and Computer Science Department at MIT, where he joined the Laboratory for Information and Decision Sciences. Since 1999, Prabhakar has been on the faculty of Stanford University's Electrical Engineering and Computer Science Department, currently as a full professor. After getting stuck in particularly bad traffic jam in Bangalore in late 2007, Prabhakar got Infosys to fund an experiment with 20,000 of its employees in Bangalore to determine incentives to induce the employees to change their commutes to before or after peak hours to relieve congestion. He also devised a similar experiment for the campus of Stanford in Palo Alto in California. Let's also see the video.
Stanford professor Balaji Prabhakar is one of the world's foremost authorities on internet congestion and how to keep websites up even when they get pounded with traffic. From there, it was a short jump to experimenting with methods to reduce rush hour congestion on urban roads, trains, and buses. As director of the Stanford Center for Societal Networks, Prabhakar works on making societal networks smarter, more scalable, and more efficient. And when a former Google executive became a visiting researcher at Stanford, he and Prabhakar made the decision to do a startup, combining spatial analytics, behavioral economics, and computing technology to help city planners and transportation systems alleviate urban gridlock. Their startup, Urban Engines, serves cities by taking existing data from transit systems to generate a dynamic digital replica of a city's transportation systems. Congestion and other problems become visible, and the company aims to help city customers implement positive incentive systems to shift travel from peak hours, much as they did with a pilot study in Bangalore. Urban Engines raised its first funding in 2013, attracting blue-chip Silicon Valley investors led by Google Ventures. But the company didn't announce its official launch until May 2014. By then, the company had already attracted other important partners. The World Bank is working with the company to model São Paulo's 15,000 bus system and congestion. And for Singapore, Urban Engines began building not just visual analytics tools, but also what Prabhakar calls a nudge engine, an incentive system to nudge commuters away from peak travel times. Commuters sign up by registering their smart cards, earning points for every trip, but for each off-peak kilometer, they earn triple points. The points can then be redeemed for future trips on their card, or they can use the points to play a micro-raffle app game, getting the chance to win even larger dollar amounts. Urban Engines uses math to infer the real-time state of a transit system. Prabhakar calls it crowd sensing, but without the cost of deploying new sensors. In many cases, the company just needs to track people entering and exiting a system. Then, by knowing the aggregate of all the commuter data at the same time, Urban Engines can infer how a bus or rail system is operating. Going forward, Urban Engines sees itself working with many more cities worldwide on urban transportation, but also applying what it knows to other societal networks, including electric grids and recycling systems.
Now we're back to Q&A. I'm going to use the advantage of standing here and ask the first question. So I wonder if any of you have ever encountered failures that you didn't know how to deal with, and what happened after that.
Okay, I will start. So obviously, which is very widely publicized from a Broadcom point of view, has been the exit from the cellular baseband, and that was a very, very tough decision for the company, personally for myself as well, since that was a big part of what I had done. It was great to see baseband and mobile and connectivity revenues go from nothing to $4 billion over one decade, which was phenomenal. But exiting a big piece of the market also was not easy, and that was a very difficult call. And obviously, business execution challenges were very significant, and there were a lot of lessons learned during that period. But that was a very tough one.
Sure, you experience failures. As you heard, one of the companies that I founded, Bandwidth, did not succeed. Although it has a great idea, a reasonable, good team, but things that the combination of the people and the market was not strong enough to make the company survive at those times. So, but what do you do when you have failure? the best thing is to just try another time. And that's what we did. Also in Amimon. In Amimon, we had some tough time, but this time there was enough courage to change course and to move on to a more successful path. So the answer is what you have when you have failure, just try another time.
So I think all startups experience failures. There's no question. They may be big or small. As long as you have enough money and a good team, no failure is catastrophic. But the failures that I encountered that were surprising were the people failures. So I really thought, I've got, talent in dealing with difficult people. Whatever comes up, I'm going to be able to handle it. And you don't realize, you think people in academia are difficult. They are pussycats compared to what you're going to encounter in the startup world and in the venture world. And so the failures that I look at are the ones where, I thought, my co-founder and I would forge a vision and move ahead and everything would be fine. It wasn't. Both of us ended up leaving the company. We saw a lot of very talented people leave the company due to turmoil, and I think that not being able to manage that is what I would say was one of Quantenna's biggest failures.
So failures are a part of this game. If you're afraid of failures, do not get into it, right? And it's very, very important to learn from your mistakes that caused you to fail in the first place. In the Silicon Valley, a failed entrepreneur is actually considered a better bet than a new one. So the important thing is not that you fail, that you learn from your mistakes and that you're better at the next venture that you're going to try.
And I have a question. So we obviously have really good technical skills as PhD students in engineering, but where would we find the business skills to start and create and maintain a successful company like you guys have?
So I think many technologists make the mistake of thinking that if you have great technology, that means you'll have a successful company, that it'll sell itself. And I think what is really important that you learn in doing a successful company is that the marketing, the business development is just as important as having a good technology, as well as luck and timing. So you don't need to have the business skills going in. You may learn it along the way. But you can't ignore the fact that those skills are critical to success, and bringing in talented people in those domains and not treating them as second-class citizens, recognizing that their talent is just as important for the success of the company as the technology you develop.
And I'd add to that, you should just pick the right partners, the right team with you. We are, as technologists, indeed have this tendency to believe that once we solve this tough technical problem, we will be successful. Time and again, I was in a situation when this was not the case. The technology worked, and the company was in trouble. So you learn the hard way, the business skills, and you should start the company with the right partners that will help you to make it a little easier.
Just to reiterate a bit, there are good engineers, there are not so good engineers. There are good business people, there are not so good business people. But for success of a company, it is just not enough to have good engineers. You need to have a good, well-rounded overall team with really good business folks as well. There is a term in the industry, in this business, in the Bay Area called founderitis. It is a disease that founders often have, where they don't want to let go of the controls of the company, and they want to be a part of every decision, whether they understand the business implication of the decision or not. They just have the need to be a part of every decision and to dictate the decision. So it's one of the things that you should be watchful about, is that it is not bad to not know, because nobody can know everything. But it is really bad to not know that you don't know, because then you won't get help, okay? So stick to your strengths and let other people who are strong in their areas do their job.
I think I would just pretty much agree with everything that has been said. When I used to pitch the various companies we want to acquire within the company, the first question, it was given that myself and few others who were doing all these due diligences and figuring out what company to acquire, we will do a good job on the technology side. The inevitable question from the CEOs, do they have a good marketing guy? So it's or a great marketing guy. So marketing is equally important, as everyone said, if not more important. You can break or make companies just on that.
Does the audience have any questions?
I can give my views on that, which is I think IEEE is not a cellular, the thought process is not a cellular standards way of thinking, and that's one. The second one is that the vested interests of cellular, if you want to call it the OEMs, were all focused on 3GPP and not in the WiMAX. So that is a fundamental issue. So most of the people who essentially the carriers, Nokia, Ericsson's, Alcatel's, Motorola's, Qualcomm's, we're all focused on driving a cellular standard as an evolution of what was existing. It may be a significant departure, but it was along those lines. So I think the cellular standards body plays a serious role there, and I think the 802.11 group did not have the credibility to address the cellular market. That's my personal view. I'm sure Rajiv and Andy has much stronger views on that. No comments.
The results speak.
Hi, thank you everyone. This was awesome. Thank you for sharing all of your views. I want to actually pick up on something that Andrea said, and I ask you, if you can, to elaborate on this. And so you say, get good people. Great. But can you tell us a little bit more? And this is what I mean. So let's say a company comes and pitches to me, come on board. We want you on board. Let's go do this. Or I'm going and I'm looking at people. So it's good to say, look for good people. That is on paper, but there are other things beyond that Andrea sort of hinted at. What are the red flags that you look for? I shouldn't get into this. Or what are the specifics that you look for? Okay, this is a great opportunity.
You want to start?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, good. I have to think. So I think the team and the vision is very, very important. First of all, if you want to join a company and you don't believe in the vision of the company, do not join that company. So you have to identify personally with the vision. You have to be passionate about it. Because life in a startup is a little different than life in a big company. Everybody sinks or swims together. Right? So it's not you pulling others down. It's not the same politics that happens in big companies. So if you don't believe in the basic premise as to why the company was created, that is not the company for you. Okay? Then, in addition to believing in the vision, you have to believe in the founding team, right? You have to have a personality that matches with the personality of the founding team, and you have to see that it is not just the technical founders that are good, that also the business side is equally good. Because every player in this chess game has to do their job right for you to win. And the odds at a startup are always stacked against you. The odds that you will fail are much higher than the odds that you will succeed. Luck plays a big role, but as a famous golfer once said, that golf is a game of luck, but I find that the harder I work at it, the luckier I get. So hard work is also, you should be prepared to work very hard. If you believe in the vision, the work will not feel like work. It will feel like play. So those are important things if you want to join a startup.
So I think that there's a great book about startups called The Founder's Dilemma. Anyone who's thinking about doing a startup should read it. I've given it out about 20 times. And they say, who are the best people to found a company with? Should it be, friends and family, strangers, people you've worked with before? So friends and family, absolutely not. If you want to keep your friends and family, you don't found companies with them because you can't fire your spouse or your sister or whatever. Strangers are actually the second best, and the best is people you've worked with before. So the problem as academics is that we haven't worked with people before as entrepreneurs. And it's a whole different skill set that you need to found a company with people and know that they're going to stick it out. They're not going to give up when the going gets tough. And sometimes you're working with people that you don't particularly like. So again, in Quanten, my co-founder and I had a lot of issues, but we both brought things to the table that were important for the success of the company. And so you have to realize that this is the best person for me to be doing this company with, because they have talents that I need and I don't have and nobody else in the founding team has. But that means I have to have pretty thick skin. So I think, you make mistakes along the way. You will learn, from the first company, there's an infinite number of mistakes, and you'll make many. And the next company, if you do another one, there's many more to make. But I think the people that you pick first is absolutely the most important thing. And you don't know. The bottom line is that you really don't know, if you haven't worked with these people before, if they're the right people. You just have to take a shot at it.
I would say one important thing is to know the people you start the company with. In Israel, we had the luck or the special thing that we know many people from many occasions, either in the university or the army or wherever. And so you should, a good person to join your team is somebody that you experienced with in the past. Now, generally speaking, I would say there are two things that you look at the person. One is the commitment. It's not just to say I joined and there should be a real deep commitment for the company, because there will be trouble and there will be uneasy situations. The other thing is to get or not to show your ego. It's very, well, it's not easy, it's easy to say, it's not easy to happen, but when people that you should fire are those people that you can see how their personal ego goes over what the company is needing. In a startup, you should be ready to clean the floor or whatever if this is what you need for the other person to do the specific job. And the last thing I would say is the team issue. Bandwidth, the company that failed, there were very talented people there, but the match did not work well. Everybody was pulling to a different direction, and when there were trouble, things just blew apart. So the ability to be together, that's the third thing that I would consider for the team that you find at the start of the company.
Yeah, on a lighter note here. So HBO has a sitcom called Silicon Valley, which is about the adventures of a startup. And it just happens that they have chosen as topic for it data compression. So in fact, in the first episode, someone is showing some software operating at a low data rate and says, oh my God, how can you achieve at this low data rate and it's lossless? You must have been paying attention in the information theory class. So, in fact, Zahi Weissman from Stanford is the technical advisor for the company. And in fact, last week we had a meeting with them in Stanford to give them ideas for the next season. So I don't know whether any of the panelists have seen the series, but it's very funny, and I think it does capture some of what you were talking about, the culture.
Well, I don't know if it got to Israel already, but I'll try to follow that.
So I think living a startup is much more entertaining in many ways than watching a show about it. So I haven't actually seen the show, but I believe many interesting shows could be written about startups. They're all soap operas.
Just to show you how old-fashioned I am, I said I wait until to get to Israel. Of course, I can get it immediately through the network.
Okay, so I guess considering the time, we're about to end. I have an announcement, but before that, let's get a round of applause for our guests. I have an announcement, and then there are a couple of things that Nick has to say. The announcement came from my boss, so go fight with him. So first of all, we hope that you enjoyed the play and you're one bit closer to becoming an entrepreneur. And we should say that if you start a company based on things that you heard just now, you owe ITA 1%. Okay, it's up there.
So before we thank Dr. Viterbi and our panelists again, I'd like to call to the stage the man behind the scenes, Doug Ramsey. He's the biographer, the screenwriter. He made all the movies, and this is all because of him.
And we should also, Alon Orlitsky, the playwright, the producer, and the director.